Now it's time to talk about what a lot of people are thinking about for sure this morning, that Super Bowl. I'm just going to give it right over to Paul. What did you think about the game?
So, as we'll get into, I think a singular bad moment is going to overshadow what was probably the best actual gameplay Super Bowl we've had in about 5 years, in all honesty. So that's probably the overall biggest takeaway, at least for me, is the fact that we'll have one moment overshadow what was a pretty good game.
Yeah, what was that moment?
Oh, it was, the defensive hold on Bradbury of the Eagles on, who was it, Juju? Yeah. No, was it Juju?
Yes.
So
it was the legit last play of the game, essentially.
Yeah. So, I'm assuming we'll dive more into it, but yeah, I mean, the moment itself kind of is going to overshadow, like I said, what was probably the best Super Bowl we've had in about 5 years.
Well, let's get into it. Refs ruling the outcome of the game. Would we have rather seen, Jim, that not be a call and just let him play it out? Or are you happy that they called it?
No, they should have. Of course, I mean, that was the end of the game. That allowed Kansas City to run out the clock and kick a field goal instead of Kansas City kicking a field goal and then Philadelphia getting the ball back, having a chance to tie or win. And they didn't call that penalty where Bradbury kind of held Schuster-Smith's jersey for half a second. And the thing was, Schuster-Smith still had him beat. A better pass would have been a touchdown, but that was it. That was the end of the game, and it was a great game. And it was very anticlimactic. We should have been seen Philadelphia with the ball, with a chance to either lose, tie, or win. And chances are, I thought we would have been going to overtime. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I was really disappointed because it was a great Super Bowl to watch. It was amazing how Andy Reid burnt Philadelphia's defense by sending those guys in motion. And then stopping, putting their foot in the ground and cutting back the opposite way, wide open both times to Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. I mean, that was great. Because I thought Philadelphia had the better team, but you could see how a coach like Andy Reid can be the difference. So it was a great game, and it just was not a good ending. Although I won $700 Super Bowl square with an 8-5 final. So
well, that's a success. You know what? I watched that replay, and now this morning I've seen it on social media probably like 24 times, and everybody keeps saying that there was a slight grab. I didn't see it.
Well,
I didn't see a grab. I see, yes, his hand brushes the back of the jersey, but it doesn't look like a grab to me.
It's not so much the last grab, which is what is being highlighted the most. There was a grab before, more at the hip level, which is where the hold probably was. The main issue with it is, by letter of the law, is it the correct call? Yes. However, they weren't calling it all game.
That's the problem with the NFL.
Inconsistency in there.
There's a lot of money about in these games, so they have to really get their process for calling these things black and white as they can. And you see that all the time. A defensive player hooks the offensive player, whether it's defending a pass or in the 5 yards before they, break the line of scrimmage. And sometimes they call it, sometimes they don't.
Yeah. If Patrick Mahomes doesn't essentially throw a fit as soon as he throws the ball because he saw what he saw, does that get called?
Probably not, because you know what? I watched it and I didn't see any flags thrown. Right. The pass was incomplete. I was like, okay, here comes Butker for a field goal, which would have won your prop bet, Paul, and mine. Right?
No.
I know that would have been the first one, but they would have gone to overtime and had a chance.
Right.
The Elliott had 2 field goals, though.
Right.
So, but regardless, I didn't see any flags, and I didn't think there was a penalty, but as happens so often in the NFL, guess what? There was a penalty, and the game's over.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it depends too. To go back, right? I mean, we always talk about what players can also get certain calls and stuff like that. And Mahomes probably, doing the theatrics there probably aided in the flag coming out there at the end. So
What do you think, Nate?
I mean, he freaked out.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
I think similar to what you guys think. It's something that probably is a penalty. I mean, it's by letter of the law, right? But they didn't call it all game. There's probably 10 or 15 times you can call that during the game. They chose not to. So you kind of choose your fate as a referee. Are we going to call these ticky-tack penalties? And in my mind, you can't call that at the end of the game. Let the players decide on who should win the championship. That's
What about another call in the game on Nick Bolton's what would have been his second touchdown?
Oh no, that was incompletion. I'm okay with
yeah.
that.
I mean, by the letter of the law, it is, but I don't like that rule either because by the eye test, that looks like a catch. Guy has two hands on the ball, squares up to the defender, gets popped, and loses it.
I don't like at this point that you can't tell. Like, no one can say what is or isn't a catch. Every single catch is like debated on its individual camera angles, and that just is that's lunacy to me.
And
because
watching
it becomes
in slow
impossible.
motion is always different than live. So if you
Yeah.
watch that play in slow motion, it looks definitely like a catch because he had the ball in his hands for so long. But in real time motion, bang bang.
I mean, yeah, we're forever wondering what is a catch at the end of the day. I mean, as we have for the past, at least 10 years since the Des Bryant incident kind of
That's
kicked
caught it.
off this whole thing.
And it also happened with Devontae Smith a couple times and Gobert on that one sideline catch.
Yeah.
Oh, got it, yeah.
I mean, those were all really close, tough to tell calls. I think they got them right, though. Each one of them, I think they got right. Those reviewed catches.
But the problem with those is that if they go the other way, if they go the wrong way, it can absolutely like nuke momentum for that team and give the other team all of the momentum. It's like it can completely turn your fortunes 180 degrees, which just, it doesn't seem like it should be the way it is.
no, it's a catch or not.
Also, how do we feel about Patrick Mahomes' ankle? Like, I cannot figure out for the life of me. He is either the best actor in the NFL or he is one of the strangest human beings I've ever seen play the game, because he is absolutely grimacing at like 3 different points during and in between plays last night.
Yeah.
And then he's just the next play bolting, running full speed with no limp whatsoever. Like how do we feel? Where do we come down on that? Because that visually, that was something.
Toradol's a hell of a drug. But look, I think the ankle injury last night was not actually even the one he had initially hurt. I believe it was the other ankle. But I mean, at the end of the day, we kind of alluded to it a little bit on Friday or Thursday when we were really talking about it. He's not going to be 100%. He's going to be closer to 100 than he had been the week prior. But
You think that play at the end of the first half was his other ankle?
yeah, I think it was his left.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
I thought he tweaked it, and then given that extended halftime, was able
I mean,
to
I
get
don't know.
it retaped.
It was tough. I mean, both ankles ended up coming out heavily taped in the second half. So I don't know.
Do you buy it though, or is it just for? Or is
Oh,
that
I mean,
just
I buy
part
it.
of the act?
No,
I mean,
I
I
don't
buy
think
it.
he's-
I don't think he was acting. Yeah, I mean, I buy it. I mean, he clearly, you could tell their play calling was distinctively different for the better part of the second half. I mean, there was a lot more when they went to a true RPO. There was a lot more handoff than there was him sitting back to go for a pass than there was in the first half.
Yeah,
and
but
that
to be
was
fair,
also when they were behind.
Their offensive game plan in the first half just wasn't going to cut it. I mean, that was pretty clear. They shifted in the second half.
Yeah.
And that was when things really started to turn for them.
Well, yeah, but you also, I mean, the Eagles also went into not prevent, but I mean, they're also kind of stayed off the attack all of a sudden, just that backfire.
Well, they tried
on
to
them.
establish the run, I think,
Yeah.
which is something that they never did all game. They just, I mean, I want to prop on Miles Sanders under 13.5 rushing attempts. I thought that was the lack of the day for the Super Bowl. And then the other thing that was a lock was every game for the past like 10 weeks, or certainly the playoffs, you take the Gainwell over for Philadelphia. That was another lock. I also had a Gainwell anytime touchdown, and they took it away in the first.
Yeah.
And then I had a McKinnon anytime touchdown, and he was right there. He just decided not to make the smart play.
Yeah.
And it was a
Yeah.
smart play, right?
You're right.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So our betting wins and losses aside, Last night was an abysmal night for me.
Yeah.
But halftime show. Where did this one rank in the, we'll call it the last 10 or so years of halftime shows?
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because we have a couple of years where it's, you have to kind of go in and out with COVID and stuff like that. But
Give it a letter grade. Give it a letter grade.
I'd say B+, B+, A minus.
show.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the fact that Rihanna was coming back after
Yeah.
being away for so long was a big part to it, and obviously it was all great production. But I've never been a fan of the Super Bowl halftime show because it's not a performance; it's more of like an exhibition or a choreograph piece.
Yep.
Like she was lip syncing,
Yes.
obviously.
Yeah, it seems like the lip sync every year.
100% she
But
was,
they
I
have to
think.
lip sync because look at what they're doing. They're
100
setting up
feet in the
this
air.
giant stage in the middle of a football field that wasn't there, 5 minutes ago, and then they got to
Right.
put on this gigantic performance and then get rid of it. So they're not going to take a chance with that big of a viewing audience to have a microphone malfunction.
Mhm.
So if you know that going in, it's just not the same as like going to we went to a Rihanna concert. This
Right.
is just something different. The Super Bowl halftime, something different. This was a good one as far as they go. I didn't know she was pregnant. And at first, I looked a couple times. I'm like, damn, is Rihanna pregnant? Did you guys know she was pregnant?
I didn't know she was pregnant. No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
my
I was
wife.
like,
My wife told me she was pregnant before, and that was how I.
Yeah, I had
figured
no
that out.
idea. But yeah, it's a lot. They really aren't afraid to push the sexual side of things too in these things, which you wouldn't think.
I mean, know your audience. The NFL. I mean, there's
Yeah,
a
but there's
very specific
it's-
demographic there.
Yeah.
It's really not an NFL audience at that point though. It's America as a whole.
Well,
Like it's
Yeah.
the reason why the advertising costs so much is because it is the one time that you really have the entire country watching.
I guess that's. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
the things-
There isn't another event. It certainly wasn't the State of the Union. Maybe 50 years ago, the State of the Union might have been the shared.
I mean, it's
experience.
definitely the most watched event on television. I would give that. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it's weird and it's clunky at this point. The halftime show. I'd almost rather see something else be done completely because I think there were, in the lead up to it, I say like the 10, 15 minutes before the actual performance, I think there were like 2 or 3 commercial breaks, and before each commercial break, they're teasing coming up next.
Yeah, they were
And
doing
it's just
that.
not
That was
coming
really-
up next at
no,
all.
That
Like,
was
it's
annoying.
And it's like, like even my wife Conchetta, she looks over at me, she goes, "Is it ever going to happen?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, they literally only have 20 minutes to make this thing happen." So
I felt the same way.
it's almost like either make it longer or do something different with those 20 minutes because just to me it's like, so if you want to jump on the bandwagon that it's basically pre-recorded, it's just a choreographed dance, or
If you could
some
call it
kind of
that.
like show.
Yeah,
I
I'd
get
like
it's
to
like a
see
show,
him.
right?
I'd like to see him just put a stage out there and perform some live music. But that's not what it's about. It's got to be over the top.
I mean,
It's-
Fox was running live performances leading up to the Super Bowl, and the few that I caught, and I can't even remember any of them off the top of my head, but the few that I caught there seemed to be more compelling than the actual halftime.
because they were
shows.
actually performing. I think you know what I mean.
And there was like a real like tangible live audience there in front of them too. That was
Right.
the Super Bowl halftime show is also weird because fan interaction is kind of like muted because it's a football stadium that's set up for football and not a concert. It's just it's a little strange.
it's made for TV, not for the people in the stands.
Yeah.
But I was also a little put off by the fact that I thought the game was supposed to start 6:30, and it was probably 6:40, 6:45 when they kicked off, and it was just all the stuff going on with I can't even remember who they trotted out like around 6:35. A couple of good famous Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh yeah, they were standing in the end zone.
Hall of Fame classes out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all that.
DeMar
stuff.
Hamlin was out there.
Yeah, they had Damar Hamlin sitting up there with Travis Kelce's mom.
yeah, and Roger Goodell.
And Roger Goodell.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, okay.
They did well. Chris Stapleton doing the national anthem. Everybody's
Amazing.
response to that seemed to be really,
Yeah,
really
that
good.
was a good one. I think the national anthem is almost as important or noteworthy to an artist as the halftime show. I mean, you think of like Whitney Houston, like a really good national anthem can do a lot for someone's career.
Well, and I mean, he's got like 8 Grammys, so it's not like his career needs much propulsion. But at the same time, good Lord.
Yeah.
You know, a really bad performance can also what sticks out is like a really bad performance or a really good one.
Yeah.
You know, the emotional reaction I thought too on the sideline during the national anthem was pretty cool. Paul's rolling his eyes. His eyes are literally falling out.
Well, when I watch something like that, I'm thinking, yeah, the American dream for these guys is really, you know, of course I'd cry
It's
too.
very cynical, but I love
I
it.
mean, I don't know. I've always, and this will sound like an awful take here, but I mean, especially when I was playing, I've always just skip ahead. Let's just get going.
Yeah.
Well, you hear it so often, like it's
I don't know.
and when you call games, I've called a million high school basketball games. And it's like, okay, we're going to listen to the national anthem again. I just like the schools that played the shortest version because some of them would try out like a 4 minute.
I mean, when I handled the PA side of things a while ago now, I mean, we're talking probably 10 or so years since I last really had to deal with public address announcing side of things. I mean, I would always just play typically the military band versions because those are in and out in about a minute.
The Super Bowl is different though. That's one point where I think the national anthem has a spot, but it does get a little like if you're a sports fan, my God, how many times can you hear that song?
Don't get me wrong, I thought it was great. It's just one of those things that I was not moved emotionally nor in the moment would I have been. I just know myself, I guess. I would not have been moved if I was on the sidelines. So, hey, teacher, I'm not going to sit here and bash the guy. It's like whatever. Just keep it moving and let's keep playing football at that point.
I don't want to debate it today, but the next time Kyle is here, we need to talk about Andy Reid and now where he ranks in the best ever conversation because I think there's a legit debate
top
to be
5
had
minimum
there. Transitioning here to other sports, Paul and Nate, you guys were out in the wild on Saturday. How was that?
Good. Yeah. I mean, Lions in Aquinas was a really fun game to call. 72-55 win for Lions there.
I didn't see that coming.
No, I think it was strange. I think kind of watching warm-ups a little bit. Aquinas came out and did this really organized deal and stuff like that, but it was strange. I think once the game actually got going a little bit, Lions, it seemed like they were more relaxed in a way. It's weird. Aquinas kind of played, I wouldn't say in fear, but like they really stuck to a failing game plan longer than I think that they really needed to in a way. And
Jameer Johnson was too much for him to handle.
Right. And
J.C. Walker played bigger than he actually, I mean, he's a tall kid, but he played like it was like Twin Towers out there. It's kind of looked.
Yeah, really good team rebounding, I thought, by J.C. and Jameer.
But, I mean, if that's not at least going in the sectionals a statement win, I don't know what is for a team like Lions at that point.
Yeah, Lions should not face anyone as good as that Aquinas team until the Far West Regional, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
agreed.
Yeah. And you guys will be coming back with the Hoops podcast today?
Yep, 2 p.m. Be us. Kyle Evans will be here for that. And then not to go too far down the road, Nate will be up in Palmac tomorrow for Marcus Whitman Palmac Boys for final regular season broadcast for us and also on Palmac TV as well for that.
Love it.
what
Bring
about
on
Super
sectionals.
Bowl commercials?
They were terrible.
What was your favorite?
Oh,
or least favorite?
Mick Ultra, hands down.
I would say Mick
Oh, the
Ultra's it.
Caddyshack theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. Although that is something that we've seen for a few weeks now. Like
Yeah.
The build-up of it, but
There wasn't any. I thought this was maybe the worst crop of commercials in a long time. There wasn't anything that stood out.
I like the Bud Light one where they were dancing to that hold music.
Yeah,
the
that
elevator
was kinda
music. I
cool.
thought that was kind of cute.
Yeah, I did. That was a good one. My favorite one was I think it was Salesforce, the Rockstar.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because you hear that all the time. Oh, she's in corporate environments. Oh, she's a rock star. Or our HR manager, she's a real rock star.
Yeah.
And then they brought out Gene, or if it wasn't Gene Simmons,
Paul Stanley,
and
Ozzy.
yeah, and they're like rock star. It's true though.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. We are going to take a quick break and then we'll